Okay, shalom, shalom, everyone. I have a very special guest with me today. Her name is Debbie Davis, and she actually has been part of the military. She was in the Army National Guard for 12 years down in Arizona. She's also been a part of the Minnesota National Guard as well. And she is a whistleblower. I mean, she's responsible for bringing down McCain. And even more significantly, I know a lot of my audience knows that McCain was a very evil dude. But a lot of people are unaware of exactly how he was involved with the human and child sex trafficking that really went on throughout the Southwest United States. Of course, this is a problem that's going on from coast to coast, but particularly down in the Southwest United States. And Debbie has been gracious enough to be able to come onto my show and to tell us about what she actually went through. So I'm going to actually start off with just asking her to introduce herself and exactly what kind of experience that she's had in the military. Go ahead, Debbie.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Daniel. So, so thank you for having me on, and you know, I'm sure everyone appreciates. I appreciate what you're doing because this is, you know, really gutsy what you're doing, and I'm sure everybody else appreciates it because it's a huge subject that nobody really has really touched on until you and a few other people. But okay, so, and I did not have any idea when I joined the Arizona National Guard that anything like this was happening. Okay, I'm from Minnesota, and I was in the Minnesota National Guard for 10 years, or 8 years, I'm sorry. And then I moved to Arizona, and then I rejoined the Arizona National Guard. And then I ended up working, I'm sorry for the background noise. We're gonna, you know, try to do the best we can here, but I want to at least touch on some of this.
And
so,
everybody knows that the reason she's actually out of town right now is directly connected to this subject. I mean, they are after her. So she's staying with a friend. I don't even know where she is right now, and I don't want her to say that on the air, but she's affecting her life right now.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a nonstop. They've been nonstop after me for 8 years. 8 years. I've had to stay with family, friends, whatever. I mean, it's just been nonstop. It's hard to imagine unless you've been in it, because I was just a normal National Guard soldier like anybody else. Okay, so anyway, I was already in the military for 8 years. Okay, so I was already familiar with how normal officers are supposed to act and how they normally act. Okay, and how they normally lead soldiers. Okay. So, but when I moved to Arizona, and then I ended up getting a full-time position there, where I was working there full-time, 40 hours a week. I was admin and supply, so I was working with them every day. I wasn't just a National Guard soldier, 1 weekend a month. I was at that base. I was working at the Phoenix Papago National Guard. It's in Papago Military Base in Phoenix, Arizona. So, you know, I was just working admin for a colonel and working supply, you know, various different jobs for like six, 7 years I worked there. I was working on the border mission, different things like that. So anyway, you know, the first thing I started noticing was just the different ways of leadership that were very abusive in Arizona compared to what I had been through in Minnesota. It's just Minnesota, I had good leadership. In Arizona, I had terrible leadership. They were abusive. I've never seen anything like it. They were abusing their authority constantly. I'm just looking at some notes because I want to make sure I cover everything here. They were basically just you know, I first started noticing issues with their personality. Okay. Like they didn't act normal. They were very abusive with their power. Okay. Then I started noticing issues with their behavior. They were very secretive, like they were hiding something. Okay. You know, so, you know, when you work with these people every day, like I was, you start to pick up on. Anyway, I ended up picking up on some kind of criminal activity. Okay. And right across the hall from me was an office called the Relief Fund Office, Emergency Relief Fund Office, and they were also picking up on that there seemed to be some major criminal activity, and they were we were all just basically feeling that it was an extremely hostile environment. You know, we were just like, what in the heck is going on here, basically, you know? And so they had been trying to report it internally because they noticed internal embezzlement, money law. They noticed illegal withdrawal. Okay, so they had been trying to report it internally through the general and things like that. Nothing was ever done. And I noticed things where I was at, which wasn't too far from them. It was just basically an overall, that whole base, there's something weird going on. And many people were noticing it. We just didn't know what it was. So I ended up turning it into the military liaison at Governor Jan Brewer's office. And then it went from there because I wanted to go outside of the base because they didn't seem to be doing anything internally, like they were trying to do a cover up. So they ended up, it went from the governor's office. My understanding is that it went to the Arizona Auditor General's office, and then they ended up doing an audit, and they found $2.7 million missing, just basically completely unaccounted for. Okay, so then I'm going to tie it in overall to how it leads to human trafficking, okay, because it will lead to the whole subject here in a minute. But so basically, I mean, I was still working there at the time, and they supposedly, you know, Tom Horn, the Attorney General's office, supposedly was going to do an investigation into it. Tom Horn's office never came out. We never talked. I was the one who reported it. He was supposedly in charge of the investigation into this. Okay, he was the Attorney General in Arizona at the time. Nobody ever came out to our base, Daniel. Nobody ever interviewed anybody from the relief fund. Nobody ever interviewed me. And then before we know it, some article came out. If you Google Arizona National Guard embezzlement, I sent you the link. It said, oh, you know, they just made up this story. Okay, it said, oh yes, you know, bad on us, you know, a colonel, Eugene Burns, he must have had a gambling problem, and he gambled away $2.7 million. Sorry, you know, I'm sorry, but you know, that was not what happened. Okay, you know, basically that was a made-up story because I believe that the Attorney General of Arizona was in on it. Okay, see, this is what happens. This is how they cover up. They have everybody in these different positions that are in on it, so that's how they can cover all their bases. You know, so he never came out and interviewed any of us. His name was Tom Horn at the time, and we were just like, you know, when this came out, we're like, what? What are they talking about? What casino? What gambling problem? What are they even talking about? It was like a joke. And then and then shortly after that, I got fired. They retaliated against me tremendously. I was fired, non-recommended for promotion, and then I was physically pushed into a room and surrounded by these officers and stuff like that. And I was given the option of a medical discharge or a dishonorable discharge. And I wasn't given a medical board. I wasn't given a fitness test. I always passed my fitness test and everything like that. Basically what they did to me was completely illegal, if you know anything about the military. And then so I mean, I went ahead and signed it, and I thank God I got out honorably because it could have been worse. Okay, so I'm thankful for that, but you know, obviously what they did was completely illegal. They complete retaliation, and then and on top of it, just to tell you, just to reiterate how evil these people were, I was pregnant at the time. I was 3 months pregnant at the time that they did this to me, and I was so traumatized that I had a miscarriage, and I almost hemorrhaged to death when I got home. Okay, so I mean, I was just completely, I had just lost my job, basically my military career, all for trying to do the right thing. Okay, I mean, I've cried over this, you know, so many times, but you know, I'm like through it now. But it just kind of tells you the level of complete complete disregard for soldiers. You know, if they touch on this human trafficking subject, you know, you're dead. You know, they had no regard for me. They wanted me dead, and it's been a fight for my life since then. So that was 2011, and then it finally came out. The article finally came out in 2012, where, you know, it finally came out in the news, and I knew it was a joke. That wasn't a real story about this colonel. But then I moved back. I moved out of Arizona, and I moved back to the Midwest, and I moved back to Minnesota, where I'm from. And then I started having problems in Minnesota, like Timothy Homestead. Okay. I'm from there, and I was just, you know, reconnecting with my family, trying to get some support. And then every time I get in my vehicle, I'm getting pulled over, like Timothy Homestead was. Okay, so now I believe, you know, since it's been many years now, I'm starting to kind of put all the pieces together. So I believe that John McCain was buddies with Keith Ellison, who was the congressman of Minnesota, and I believe they both started targeting me in Minnesota. So pretty much every time I got in my vehicle, they would find some reason to pull me over. They would completely, you don't understand. It's like, I don't even do anything wrong, but it's the cop's word against yours in court. They would make up a story. They would say, oh, she didn't put her signal on or something. Okay, and this is what Timothy Homestead is dealing with. They completely make up stories. They write false charges. Okay, and then but the judge normally takes the police's side in court. So I've got, you know, I had a couple you know, I had all these traffic tickets I had to fight that were all completely made up. But then I have, you know, you have to go to court each time and be like, I mean, it's a complete waste of time, money, and complete harassment, police harassment. And he said, you know, that he believes that they were all part of the Pedagate. You know, I'm not saying that all of the Minnesota police are in on it. I'm sure they certainly aren't. But I believe that there's a good percentage because of Keith Ellison, is my understanding. Because I believe Keith Ellison is in on it. I believe that he's got some of the police in on the Pedagate operation in Minnesota. And, you know, this has never happened before. I'm from Minnesota. You know, these areas here, you know, we've never had issues like this, but they've been corrupted, you know.
Right. And so just to recap here, and
yeah,
I'm absolutely horrified that happened to you. That is, I mean, to cause a miscarriage at 3 months, that's got to be absolutely devastating. So basically, they offered you down in Arizona. They said, well, you can either be dishonorably discharged or you can go off on a medical discharge. And you went ahead and signed the medical discharge, even though you were fine.
I was totally fine. There was no medical board. Normally, a medical discharge, it's like a whole process. You go in front of a medical board. You know, they see if you can pass the PT test. You know, you get a doctor to see, you know, if you have any injuries. I passed my PT test. There was nothing wrong with me. They just forced me out.
Right.
I don't know of anybody else that this has happened to. I got forced out on a medical. I never went to a medical board. There was no proper procedures.
Right. So they illegally removed you from the.
They illegally removed me.
And then you moved to Minnesota, and now the Attorney General at the time of Minnesota, Keith Ellison.
Keith Ellison was congressman at the time, and now he's Attorney General.
Attorney General. He, of course, who has close ties with John McCain.
Yeah, he's a Democrat.
Yeah, and of course, you know, McCain has had close ties with the Clintons as well, and their whole child sex trafficking foundation. A lot of it ran through the Southwest United States. In fact, he talked about how the reason McCain had to be removed is because he was a cover for the Clintons and a lot of their child sex trafficking going through, in particular, the West United States. I want you to talk a little bit about what you shared with me on email, and that is about what you did when you went to Trump Tower.
Well, basically, I just okay. So I had been basically ever since 2000. Ever since this happened, 2011, I've had people after me. I've had death threats, and I would be happy to share them. If anybody can email me or call me, I mean, I'll give my contact information right on here. My email is mwtech, TECH 2008 @gmail.com, or my number is 651-767-2892. Okay, I've had like multiple text message death threats since then, and I've had multiple things on my email suggesting that I have people after me. I have lots of proof. I basically had been fighting for my life for all these years, and then Trump Trump finally gets the election, and I felt compelled to drive to New York. I just had a packet of information that I gave to him. Watch out for this base, watch out for McCain, things like that. It's basically what it was, and so and the whole time I was driving to New York, I was getting death threats. I have them all on my phone.
What time frame was this?
This was about December 10th of 2016.
16. Okay,
so let's see, he got inaugurated shortly after that.
Okay, so he was president-elect at this time, and you're driving.
Yeah, he was president-elect.
Tower. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and they were really nice when I got there, and I basically just gave the information and told my story a little bit. And my understanding is that ever since Trump has looked more into that base, okay, and my understanding is that he's tied it into the whole human trafficking thing, that this money that was missing had nothing to do with, being gambled away. It was used, my understanding is that the money was used for human trafficking. So I haven't, it's not like I don't have complete confirmation of all of this, but my understanding from what I've seen on the news and what I've compiled and what I told is that they found out that the McCain Institute was funding human trafficking, not fighting human trafficking, and they were using the Arizona National Guard to launder the money. Okay, because when you're doing a mass operation like that, you got to try to launder it somewhere. So that's my understanding of what was going on. Okay, so so it was right at a National Guard base. We have 18, 19-year-olds, fresh troops, older troops. I mean, anybody that could have possibly gotten wind of this like I did. There was 2 soldiers that mysteriously died. I sent you that link. Brian Kesmet, I believe his name, and Carl Markovich, that mysteriously died, and I believe that they were whistleblowers prior to me. And one of them, Brian Kesmet, was in 2010 when he was riding home on his motorcycle from the base, and a mysterious black SUV drove over him twice, not just once but twice. Okay, this is the level we're dealing with. He probably accidentally got wind of this like I did, and he's completely dead now, of course. Then there was another guy, Carl Markovich, in 2010 when I was working there full time admin. He showed up for drill, because if you Google the articles now, it says need help, Valley veterans need help trying to find killer. Okay, but then the articles are deleted now and their names are deleted. But I'm going to tell you the story of who they are, because I think their families need to know, and people need to know what happened here. Carl Markovich, I didn't really know him that well, but I know people who knew him, and I believe he was picking up on some of this, what we're talking about. And he showed up for drill on a Saturday, and he got out of his vehicle, and somebody came behind him and slit his throat right on the military base. I was working there. This was on a Saturday or a Sunday. I was working there full time. It was literally probably 100 feet from where I worked full time that it happened. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is a huge story. Certainly there'll be police or something around here, swarming this place. No, nothing. Nobody ever came around. No investigation. No anything. Killer never found. This guy is just dead, and there was nothing. Because it was an internal cover-up. Okay, so you got 2 soldiers that were mysteriously dead. But this is just the beginning of the story. I can tell you, like, I can link tons of other people that died in Arizona to McCain. Okay, so we can do that maybe at another time, but.
Well, actually, you can talk a little bit more about that. Go ahead.
Well, I believe that. Do you remember that? Brian Terry, that Border Patrol agent that ended up mysteriously shot? He was picking up on it too. That was what, 2011 or something like that, right? I was working there. He was picking up on some of this stuff too. I believe that McCain offed him. I believe that wasn't, it wasn't some drug cartel that killed him. I believe he was offed, on purpose, because he was shot by a weapon that was one of ours.
Well,
if you look into his story.
Well, while you were down in Arizona, I mean, give me a rough estimate. How many people do you think were killed or, murdered by McCain or his operatives because of this human trafficking?
Do you remember that really big whistleblower, William Cooper? He was from Arizona. I believe he was offed by McCain.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, because he was from Arizona. Yeah. Okay. Then the shooting with Gabby Gifford, I can tell you firsthand that there were some people from our base that were about to tell her about some things. They would have had a meeting with her the very following week that shooting happened. So is that a coincidence, or is that on purpose?
Right. Wow. So McCain sounds like he has as high a body count around him as the Clintons. It's unbelievable.
Yes, he did. And I've just gotten to the point where all these years now, I'm tired of being afraid about it. People need to know what's going on. I've survived, thank God, by the grace of God, all these years. Thank God I got out honorably. But my life has been living hell since this. I'm just, I've been trying to survive. So I'm just at the point where I'm okay to tell my story. People need to hear this. And, I don't have total confirmation that that's exactly what the Trump administrator found, but I believe that this is going to all come out, that that's what they found. They all tied it into human trafficking. So, because I just told them what I knew, because I wanted Trump to be aware, because I believe McCain was really dangerous. So I drove 3 days to tell him that.
Yeah, I just want my audience to know. I mean, think about the time. She drove to New York State. She delivered this information to Trump while he was president-elect. This was in late 2016. He gets inaugurated. And now remember, because I did a lot of these stories back this last summer, I believe firmly McCain was executed. He was arrested in the summer, and he was brought by a military tribunal. And then he was executed because of his crimes against humanity, among which were this human child sex trafficking that I reported on way back in August. So you have to understand that her information that got to him and let him know about all this stuff, this was not just about traitorous things McCain did many years ago. This was current human trafficking, child sex trafficking he was involved in, and Q knew about this as well. So I firmly believe that Debbie Davis was one of the components that actually helped the Trump administration find out exactly the nuts and bolts of what was going on, because she was there. She saw it.
Yeah, I was there. A lot of other people are still afraid to talk from that base because it's so frightening. But I somehow broke free and I'm still alive. So, I'm here talking. But I believe that yes, I believe that McCain was executed. He didn't die of a brain tumor. That was just a story. Just like the story of the casino, the gambling. These are just stories that they create in the fake news to try to get us to believe these fake stories. And it's not true. McCain was as evil gets. I mean, I don't know of one person. I mean, I can't believe that this happened for all these years. I don't know of one person that got any kind of help from his Senate office in 30 years. I was asking around for years. I was like, does anybody know if McCain has done anything to help any veteran or does anybody have any kind of positive feedback? What has he done in 30 years? Is there anything positive? Not one thing from anyone in the whole 30 years he was senator. I mean, really? Do you really? I mean, and people didn't catch that. You know, it took me or, you know, and a couple other brave soldiers to die to pick up on this, you know, that he was the traitor, you know. And then I can tell you this too, is that when I, you know, after they did all these illegal things to me, I definitely wrote in to the Armed Forces Committee, you know, and that consisted of McCain was the head of the Armed Forces Committee, and I said, look, what is he doing? I'm a hero. I reported a $2.7 million missing. Shouldn't I be acknowledged for that? Why am I being retaliated against? Not one person from the Armed Forces Committee got back to me and did anything to help me. Okay, it's mostly Democrats. So what does that tell you? That links them to human trafficking, as far as I'm concerned. Does it not? Does it not?
Absolutely. In fact, I talked about, this was back in December, but I talked about how there are still some satanic pedophile elements within the military. There are large portions of the military that are very loyal to President Trump, and they're good, but there are rogue satanic elements within the military. Certainly there were before President Trump got in, and Debbie ran into that. She saw it right there in front of her face, right there down at that National Guard base in Arizona. So Debbie, you were down in Arizona, was it for 12 years? Is that how long you were down there?
No, I worked at the base. I was in the Minnesota National Guard for about 8 years, and then I worked at the Arizona National Guard for about 6 or 7.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So when you moved, so then you obviously you moved back to Minnesota once they retaliated against you and you were forced to leave. And then why don't you talk a little bit about the time between when you moved back to Minnesota and when you went to the Trump Tower in 2016? During that period of time where you were being harassed, were you continuing to learn more and more stuff about McCain during that time? Or, you know, what all, I know you're being harassed by the police in Minnesota, but what all, kind of talk more about that time period in your life?
Yeah, well, as soon as Trump got inaugurated, my life started getting 100 times better. Okay, I'll tell you that. Anybody that questions Trump and thinks that he is somehow in on anything, think again. I mean, my life, I'm here today because of him. Okay, I believe that I would have been murdered by now if I wouldn't have went there and I wouldn't have told him my situation, because I was literally getting death threats almost every day of my life. Okay, because I believe this was the main area where they were funding most of the human trafficking, is the Arizona, because McCain. Okay, I believe that was the Clintons, or who knows, they're involved in all kinds of different things, but I believe that was a big part of it there. And apparently I was a big threat to them. So, but yeah, I received multiple death threats for years still, and had various different problems with, they would harass my computer, they would harass my my phone. I would have weird things where I wasn't getting mail. I would have mail disappear. It's the deep state. Okay, you think it does, Sean Hannity has talked about this, and, they've talked certain channels that are willing to admit that there's a shadow government, deep state. If you think this doesn't exist, try having them after you, and then you'll know that they exist. Okay, they can affect every area of your life. They can shut down they can cause you to not get employed. They can cause you to not have internet. They can cause your phone not to work. Okay, they can do all these different things because they've, been around for. They're highly. That's what they do. But so anyway, slowly things started getting better over my life, and I moved out of Minnesota though, because I knew it had to do with something major there, and and on top of it, there's this huge population of Islam and stuff that moved into Minnesota. Okay, we got 45,000 that moved into there, and that's bigger. And the only state that got a bigger population than Minnesota was California. Now they got 90,000, but California has like 20 million people, and Minnesota has 2 million. So the impact that it made in Minnesota was huge. We got this huge influx, and it was like, whoa, it's just completely different state now. It is. And so anyway, I ended up moving. Now I'm in the Dakota area. Okay, so and so I bought a house. I got a really good deal on a property here. I thought things were doing a lot better. Then I started having problems here. Okay, then I started having problems in South Dakota. Okay, then I come to find out that I'm finding that John Thune and Rounds were good buddies with McCain. Okay, now I had no idea that there was a link there, but now I'm finding that there's a link there. And I started getting harassed there as well.
And just explain to everybody who John Thune is.
He's the senator of South Dakota. And Senator Mike Rounds.
So there you go, guys. Every state she's moved to, whether it's the attorney general or a congressman, people who have McCain keep harassing her. Go ahead.
So then I started having problems with the sheriffs and stuff here. Okay, and particularly this particular county where I'm at, it's McPherson County, and I talked to a woman named Laura Hubble. She was running for governor against Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem is now the governor, but she started sharing with me all these different things because she was running for governor because she was going to she was attempting to change all the corruption, but she didn't win. But she certainly taught me a lot. And she said, oh yeah, John Thune was complete buddies with McCain. I mean, he was like his main buddy. He was like his main protege. And I was like, oh my God, red flags are going on in my head. I mean, and so I had one time what happened was I was just driving in my car and I had I believe it was an EMF attack on my car, and my whole car circuitry system went dead. Okay, so I had to bring it in to a local mechanic, and on like 5 sensors were fried. I mean, has that ever happened to anybody? I mean, that's not normal.
That's not normal.
Yeah, I had 5 sensors fried. Okay, so then I was like over $1,000 of damage, and I got the report, and I have the list of all the sensors that were fried. Okay, so I mean, this is just touching base. I have so much more that has happened. It's unbelievable. It's like I have a whole log of it. But anyway, so I basically overall, this all ties to the reason why Trump is trying to push so hard for this border wall. Okay, it's not just a border problem. It's not just a border problem. It's happening everywhere. My understanding of the issue here in the Dakotas is that it runs from the 90 in Sioux Falls, the human trafficking operation. It runs from the 90 in Sioux Falls up through South Dakota, North Dakota, and Canada. That was what I heard from an ex-Mason. Okay, and so my understanding is that's what's happening here. They're everywhere. I mean, you've touched on it a little bit. It's not just a border issue, right?
Yeah, in fact, I've talked with several people about how we don't just need a wall on the southern border. We need one on the northern border as well because of all the human and child sex trafficking going on between Canada and the United States. It's going on all over the place. Wow, there's so much here to talk about. We're definitely going to have you on some more. So since you went ahead and freely gave your phone number, what I'll do is I'll actually just put your phone number and that way people can contact you and reach out to you as they want.
I'm done being. It's better to expose yourself than be hidden. I've tried to do a few interviews. I've done my own YouTube channel, and then the videos are up for a few days, and then they get taken down. Okay, they're trying to silence me. So this is why it's really important that I'm on this, that you have so many viewers. So thank you.
Yeah, and we'll see what they try to do against me, because so far, I mean, of course, my prayer team prays for my YouTube channel every single night, And I've never had to take any videos down except I did have to take down, I think it was 3 videos of Timothy Holmseth because the privacy complaint from, I think, Greg Sawyer. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. But immediately after we're done with the interview, I want to make sure, though, that I give you also some more time. If there's anything that you have not touched on that you really want to make sure gets out here in this first interview, go ahead and talk about that.
I'm sorry, you were kind of breaking up. What now?
Yeah, I think there's still some loud background in the restaurant. Basically, if there's anything else that you want to talk about before we end this first interview that you want to get out here right now, talk about that.
Well, I think the main thing I would say in the end of this first one is that I don't think that people really truly can visualize the concept of this human trafficking. They think it's just sex slavery. They think it's like prostitution or something. You know, it's like, oh, well, if a girl decides, you know, she's going to, it's not like that. It's not like that. It's so much more sinister than that. These people are so much more sinister and evil than you can possibly imagine. And they kidnap these girls, you know, when they're 13 or whatever. You see the missing children, okay? And they're used for sex for a while, right? You know, and then in the end, my understanding is that, you know, they get used for human sacrificing, correct?
Absolutely.
And then their organs are sold.
Yes, absolutely. They're used. The organs are sold. There's baby harvesting. There's adrenochrome.
Yeah.
All the stuff is being used literally in satanic ritual sacrifices. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, okay, because you know, Trump is like trying to be as, you know, he's trying to be as like politically correct as he can, you know, with trying to explain this. You know, it's like, you know, look at these women are kidnapped against their will. You know, they get taped. You know, but you know, you can't possibly fathom the true evil unless, I mean, this is what I'm trying to convey is that the average person doesn't understand the true evil. You know, and then on top of it, they use them to create babies who are used for human sacrificing. On top of it, the women, they get them impregnated, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so incredibly evil that you can't imagine that there's. I never imagined that there was people this evil on the planet until I worked with them. Okay, I would never imagine in a million years that there was people like this on the planet. But he's dealing with them in Washington, and I dealt with them at the base. I didn't deal with them in Minnesota. I never had any kind of contact with this kind of thing. But I had contact with this kind of thing in the Arizona National Guard base for sure, where I was dealing with a type of person that I have never dealt with before, that had complete disregard for other human beings, that had complete disregard for being an officer in the military. I mean, I've never seen such evil people in all my life. They scared me. And people were, and then I had friends in the Air Force and in the National Guard and stuff in Arizona, and half the time, most of us were afraid to even show up for work. That's how evil these people were.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like anything normal at all.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, Debbie Davis has been in contact and has called several times now Timothy Holmseth. So they've both been in contact as well to share their experiences because they both had similar harassments. Of course, Timothy Holmseth has been uncovering the child sex trafficking down in Florida, and Debbie Davis, of course, has been uncovering the human trafficking that's going on down in Arizona, or that was going on down in Arizona. Hopefully, President Trump's going to be able to bring that to a stop. And just to clarify, because I know I do have a lot of U.S. veterans that are part of my audience, we are not saying the whole military is evil. What we're saying is that there are some elements within the military that are definitely evil, that are involved in some very evil stuff, that incidentally is probably also opposed to President Trump as well. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, Debbie.
So, exactly. I'm not, of course, we're not saying that. We're just saying, we're just making people aware. And would you want your son or daughter to work on a base like this? I mean, I never knew that I was going to have to work on a base like this. I was just trying to have a paycheck, you know, and I had to work with, the most evil people you can possibly imagine from day to day. That where I got to the point where I was afraid to even go to work. And then you have nobody to report it to because the attorney general is in on it. I mean, it was frightening.
Yeah, that's very, very, very sinister. Very sinister. Although with all the stuff I've uncovered about McCain, it doesn't surprise me like it probably would have surprised me a year ago. But well, I'm definitely going to have you on again. And I agree. I think the more public that you are, the more open you are, the more people can easily reach you, the safer you'll be. And it does encourage me, and hopefully it encourages you guys out there who are watching this, that, you know, she has said even with all the harassment that she's undergone, things have gotten better since President Trump has gotten into office. Because like you heard her say, she probably would have been murdered and covered up, left for dead if President Trump hadn't won. So hopefully that'll encourage people out there too.
There's so much disinformation, everybody that I talk to in the military, everything about the military has gotten better since Trump. I mean, you know, the VA has gotten better. Everybody's got better supplies, better equipment. I mean, yeah, I mean, absolutely, I'm a supporter of Trump, and there's, you know, I'm not. There's no denying it. I mean, I believe he saved my life. So, I mean, yeah, if people are. Yeah, because there is so much disinformation on the media right now. It's like all this stuff coming after him and from all these different sides. It's like, okay, I wish that more people would step forward about how bad it was under the Obama administration. I mean, it was like, everything was horrible. The leadership was horrible. You couldn't get supplies. There was a lack of communication. There was people that got murdered because we didn't have proper communication or equipment. They got accidentally killed. I mean, I don't know why more people aren't talking about it. I guess they're afraid, but it's night and day difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, Debbie, I want to thank you so much for being on. Hopefully we'll have you on again very soon. We can get into a place even that's more quiet so that it's easier to hear the audio. But thank you for sharing all this. I hope and I believe this is going to open up a lot of eyes of people who are part of my subscribers, because this information, guys, this information is still very, very important, because even though McCain has been executed, which is exactly what needed to happen, there's still a lot of people who, even who are Trump supporters, who don't necessarily understand the full gravity of what McCain did. Him being involved in human trafficking and child sex trafficking, in my mind, this is the worst thing that he did. The worst thing, because when you have little children, or when you have like baby farms, like what Debbie is telling us about, where they literally have women that they get pregnant so that they can harvest these babies for their sick satanic purposes. It's like she said, it's evil that's almost incomprehensible. So you can't believe it until you see it for yourself. It's hard for people to believe that at Congress and Washington and these people that you think are in these positions of authority, certainly they, certainly somebody would have said something by now if they were that evil. No, they really are that evil. It's just been a huge cover up for like 30 years. It really is that bad. Right.
Wake up, people.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, Debbie, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on my YouTube channel here, and we will definitely get another interview out with you very soon.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right.
All right.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.
Okay.